Ma'am, stop right there. Receipt and ID, now.
Officer, the alarm didn't go off. I paid. Am I being detained?
You're acting suspicious. Normal people cooperate.
Exercising my rights is not suspicious. Do you have reasonable suspicion, yes or no?
Turn around. You're under arrest.
Then you just made the biggest mistake of your career.
The security camera mounted above the exit of the Tech Zone Superstore captured the entire interaction in high-definition digital silence. Officer Tyler Branning, standing with his arms crossed near the automatic doors, had absolutely no idea that the woman he was tracking with a predatory gaze, a woman he had already decided was a criminal, had spent the last 25 years hunting down international money launderers, tax evaders, and corrupt politicians as a special agent for the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. The woman pushing the cart toward the exit wasn't nervous. She wasn't looking for an escape route. She was Evelyn Vance, and she carried a badge that gave her federal arrest authority across all 50 states. She had led task forces that dismantled cartels and had sat across interrogation tables from men who dissolved bodies in acid. And now she was about to become the target of a rookie cop's ego, a mistake that would cost the city nearly $1 million and burn the department's reputation to the ground. Before we unravel this infuriating and vindicating story, I need you to take a second. Scroll down and leave a comment telling me where you're watching from city, state, or country. And if you believe that nobody, absolutely nobody, is above the Constitution, hit that subscribe button. You need to see how this ends. Evelyn Vance didn't look like what Tyler Branning thought a federal agent should look like. At 54 years old, she was a grandmother of 3 dressed in comfortable slacks and a wool cardigan on her day off. She had spent the morning reviewing case files on a tablet before deciding to upgrade her home office setup. She had just purchased a high-performance desktop computer and 2 monitors items she needed for her remote work. The total came to over $3,000 paid for with her personal American Express Platinum card. It was a Tuesday afternoon. The store was relatively quiet, and Evelyn was looking forward to getting home and setting up her new equipment. She had the receipt tucked securely in her wallet. She had her keys in her hand. She was a law-abiding citizen conducting lawful commerce. Officer Branning saw something else. He saw a black woman pushing a cart full of expensive electronics. He saw a score. Branning was 29 years old, 5 years on the force, and considered himself a proactive officer. He was working a paid detail at the store ostensibly to prevent theft, but in reality he spent most of his time profiling shoppers. He had developed a gut feeling that wasn't based on behavioral analysis or evidence, but on bias. He watched Evelyn bypass the security sensor, which didn't beep, and decided to intervene. He stepped directly into her path, his chest puffed out, hand resting near his belt. He didn't smile. He didn't offer a greeting. He just blocked the door. "Ma'am, hold up right there," Branning said, his voice loud enough to turn heads in the checkout lines. "I need to see your receipt and the card you used to pay for this." Evelyn stopped the cart. She looked at the officer, assessing him with the same cool detachment she used when analyzing bank records. She saw the lack of discipline in his stance, the arrogance in his jawline. She knew the law better than he ever would. "Is there a problem, officer?" Evelyn asked, her voice calm and steady. "Just standard procedure, ma'am," Branning replied, extending his hand. "We've had a lot of credit card fraud involving high-ticket items lately. I need to verify that these items were purchased legitimately. Receipt and ID, please." Evelyn didn't move to open her purse. She knew exactly what was happening. This was a seizure under the Fourth Amendment. She had not triggered the alarm. She had not been observed concealing merchandise. She had paid at the register in plain view. Once the transaction was completed, the items belonged to her. "Officer," Evelyn said, keeping her hands on the handle of the cart, "I have purchased these items. The transaction is complete. Unless you have reasonable articulable suspicion that I have committed a crime, I am not obligated to show you my papers or my receipt. Am I free to go?" Branning blinked. He wasn't used to people using words like articulable. He was used to people getting scared and complying. "Ma'am, it's store policy. You can't leave with that merchandise until I verify it." Store policy applies to employees, officer, or to membership clubs where I signed a contract agreeing to a check. Evelyn corrected him, her tone shifting from polite to instructional. This is a public retailer. Once I bought these items, they became my private property. You are a government agent. You cannot enforce a store policy that violates my constitutional right against unreasonable search and seizure. Now again, do you have reasonable suspicion that I have committed a crime? The air in the vestibule changed. It grew heavy. Branning's face reddened. He stepped closer, invading her personal space. He wasn't listening to her legal argument. He was hearing a challenge to his authority. I'm not going to ask you again. You're acting suspicious. Normal people just show the receipt. Why are you making this difficult unless you have something to hide? Exercising my rights is not suspicious behavior, Evelyn said, her voice hardening. Florida v. Bostick. The Supreme Court has been very clear on this. My refusal to consent to a voluntary search cannot be the basis for reasonable suspicion. You are fishing, officer, and you are fishing in very dangerous waters. I'm detaining you for investigation of theft, Branning announced, placing his hand on the cart, effectively seizing her property. You're not going anywhere until I see some ID and that receipt. The confrontation had now escalated beyond a simple conversation. Shoppers were stopping. A young man in a hoodie pulled out his phone and started recording. Evelyn noticed him and didn't look away. She wanted a record. She needed a record. You are detaining me, Evelyn clarified, looking him dead in the eye. You are officially detaining me. Yes? Branning snapped. I am conducting an investigation. Based on what facts? Evelyn pressed. Did the cashier signal for help? Did the alarm go off? Did a loss prevention officer flag me? Or did you just see a black woman with a nice computer and decide she couldn't possibly afford it? Watch your mouth, Branning warned, his hand moving to his radio. You're bordering on disorderly conduct. I don't care what you think you know about the law. Out here I ask the questions. Now step away from the cart and give me your ID. Evelyn made a calculation. She could continue to refuse, which might lead to him physically tackling her, or she could comply under duress and let him dig his own grave deeper. She chose the latter. She would give him the rope. I am complying under protest and out of fear for my safety, Evelyn stated loudly for the benefit of the camera recording them. I am reaching into my purse to retrieve my identification. I am not consenting to any search of my person or my property. She moved slowly. She opened her leather tote bag. Inside, next to her wallet, was her badge case. It contained her federal commission, her photo ID, and the gold shield of the Internal Revenue Service Criminal Investigation Division. She bypassed the badge for a moment and pulled out her driver's license. She handed it to Branning. He snatched it from her hand. Evelyn Vance, he read, sneering slightly. You live in the Heights. I do, Evelyn said. That's an expensive neighborhood, Branning commented, the insinuation hanging in the air like a foul smell. What do you do for a living, Ms. Vance? How do you afford $3,000 in electronics on a Tuesday? I work for the federal government, Evelyn said. Branning scoffed. Sure, post office DMV, or are you just saying that? Officer, you have my identification. Run it. Do your job so I can leave. Branning wasn't done. He wanted to humiliate her. He wanted to win. I'm not done investigating. I need to see the credit card you used. I need to match the last 4 digits. We have rings of people cloning cards. You fit the profile. I fit the profile? Evelyn repeated, her voice dropping an octave. And what profile is that? The profile of a taxpayer, the profile of a grandmother, or the profile of a black woman you think you can bully? That's it, Branning decided. Turn around. You're under arrest. For what? Disorderly conduct and obstruction of justice. You're causing a scene. You're refusing to cooperate with a lawful investigation. There is nothing lawful about this, Evelyn said. But she turned around. She wasn't going to fight him physically. That was how you got hurt or killed. She would fight him where she was a master in a courtroom. Branning grabbed her wrists, roughly pulling them behind her back. The handcuffs clicked too tight. The metal bit into her skin. The young man filming shouted, "She didn't do anything. She gave you her ID." "Back up," Branning yelled at the crowd. "Back up or you're next." He marched Evelyn to the wall. "I'm searching your bag for evidence of the fraud," he announced. "You do not have a warrant." Evelyn said, her face pressed against the brick wall of the store entrance. "This is an illegal search. Search incident to arrest." Branning countered, feeling triumphant. He grabbed her tote bag and dumped the contents onto the hood of a nearby patrol car that had just pulled up to assist. Lip gloss, a notebook, a wallet, keys, and a black leather bifold case fell out. Branning picked up the leather case. He flipped it open. He froze. The gold shield caught the sunlight. United States Treasury, Criminal Investigation, Special Agent. The photo ID next to it showed Evelyn's face stern and authoritative. Branning stared at it. His brain tried to process what he was seeing, but his bias wouldn't let the information land. He laughed, a nervous, disbelief-filled laugh. "You've got to be kidding me," Branning said, looking at the other officer who had just arrived. "Look at this. Fake federal credentials. This is a felony, lady." Impersonating a federal officer. "You just upgraded your charges big time." Evelyn turned her head as much as she could. "Officer, look at the holographic overlay. Look at the chip. That is a federal commission. If you put me in that car, you are arresting a federal agent without cause. Call your supervisor. Call the field office. Do not make this mistake." "I've seen better fakes than this on Canal Street." Branning scoffed. He threw the badge back into her bag with no respect. "You're going for a ride. We'll let the feds know we caught one of their wannabes." He shoved Evelyn into the back of his patrol car. The hard plastic seat was unforgiving. The cage was humiliating. Evelyn Vance, who had received the Secretary's Award for Valor, sat in handcuffs watching the department store fade from view as Branning drove her to the precinct. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She wasn't praying for herself. She was praying for the young man driving the car because his life as he knew it was over. The drive to the precinct took 15 minutes. Branning was high on adrenaline, radioing ahead that he had a fraudster in custody with counterfeit federal credentials. He felt like a hero. He thought he had cracked a ring. Evelyn sat in silence. She didn't say a word. She was done talking to Officer Branning. Her next conversation would be with the people who signed his paychecks. They arrived at the station. Branning hauled her out of the car and walked her into the processing area. It was busy. Phones were ringing, officers were typing reports. Branning paraded her to the booking desk. Sergeant Miller was behind the desk. He was 58 years old, a month away from retirement, and had spent 40 years wearing the badge. He had seen everything. He looked up over his reading glasses as Branning approached with Evelyn. "What do we have here, Branning?" Miller asked, his voice gravelly. "Credit card fraud, retail theft, disorderly, and possession of forged government credentials." Branning recited proudly. "Caught her at Tech Zone, claiming to be a Fed." Miller looked at Evelyn. He saw the quality of her clothes. He saw the calm, burning intelligence in her eyes. He saw the lack of fear. His stomach gave a little lurch. "Let me see the credentials," Miller said. Branning tossed the evidence bag onto the counter. Miller opened it and took out the leather case. He held it under the desk lamp. He ran his thumb over the raised lettering. He tilted it to check the holograms. He looked at the microprinting on the ID card. Miller's face went pale. He knew real federal credentials. He had worked joint task forces in the 90s. These were real. "Branning," Miller said, his voice very quiet. "Where did you get these?" "Out of her purse. Fake right." "Pretty good quality, though." Miller stood up. He walked around the desk. He didn't look at Branning. He looked at Evelyn. Ma'am, I need to ask you, what is your badge number? Badge number 4922, Evelyn said clearly. My supervisor is Special Agent in Charge Robert Henderson, based out of the field office on 4th Street. His direct line is 555-199. Miller looked at Branning. The look was one of pure pity mixed with fury. Uncuff her, now. Sarge. Branning looked confused. She's a suspect. I said, uncuff her. Miller roared, the sound echoing through the station. That is a federal agent, you moron. You just arrested a special agent of the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. The silence that fell over the booking room was absolute. Every typewriter stopped. Every conversation ceased. Branning's face went slack. The blood drained from his cheeks. But she was stealing the receipt. Branning stammered. Unlock these cuffs, Officer Branning, Evelyn said, her voice cutting through the air like a knife. Right now. Branning's hands shook as he reached for his key. He fumbled twice before he managed to get the mechanism open. Evelyn rubbed her wrists. There were deep red marks where the metal had dug in. Sergeant, Evelyn said, turning her attention to Miller. I want your watch commander down here immediately. I want this officer's body camera footage secured. I want the dash cam footage secured, and I want a copy of the arrest report he started. Yes, ma'am, Miller said. Captain Reynolds is on his way down. I already buzzed him. Captain Reynolds arrived 2 minutes later. He was a tall man who looked like he was constantly tired. When he saw the credentials on the counter and the expression on Evelyn's face, he looked even more tired. Agent Vance, Reynolds said, extending a hand which Evelyn did not shake. I am Captain Reynolds. I understand there has been a severe misunderstanding. This was not a misunderstanding, Captain, Evelyn said. This was an unlawful detention, a violation of my Fourth Amendment rights, a false arrest and a kidnapping. Your officer profiled me, ignored the law, assaulted me, and discarded my credentials because he couldn't believe a black woman could be a federal agent. Reynolds winced. He looked at Branning, who was standing in the corner looking like he wanted to vanish into the floor. We will launch an immediate internal investigation, Reynolds promised. You are obviously free to go. We can drive you back to your vehicle. I will arrange my own transport, Evelyn said. And I don't just want an investigation, Captain. I want everything documented, tonight. I am filing a federal lawsuit against this department and Officer Branning personally. I suggest you call the city attorney. Evelyn gathered her belongings. She checked her phone. It had been shattered in the tote bag when Branning threw it. She held it up. Add destruction of federal property to the list. She walked out of the station. She didn't look back. She hailed a cab and went straight home. She sat in her living room, her wrists throbbing, her anger vibrating in her chest. She called her SAC Special Agent in Charge. Then she called the best civil rights litigator in the state. By the next morning, the internet was on fire. The video from the TechZone parking lot had been uploaded by the bystander. It was titled, Cop Arrests Grandma for Shopping. It had 4 million views in 12 hours. The video clearly showed Evelyn offering her ID, remaining calm and citing case law, while Branning grew increasingly aggressive and unhinged. The comment section was a war zone of outrage. He didn't even listen to her. She knows the law better than he does. The way he threw her bag, disgusting. The lawsuit Evelyn filed was a masterpiece of legal retribution. It didn't just target Branning, it targeted the culture of the department. It cited Monell v. Department of Social Services, claiming that the city had failed to train its officers on the limits of their authority regarding retail stops. It demanded punitive damages. The internal affairs investigation was swift, because it had to be. The DOJ Civil Rights Division sent a letter of interest within the week. They wanted to see Branning's stop data. The data was damning. In his 5 years, Branning had stopped black shoppers at a rate 4 times higher than white shoppers. He had demanded receipts from black women in 90% of his retail interactions compared to 10% for white women. He had a pattern. He had a problem. The city knew they couldn't win. The video was irrefutable. The victim was unimpeachable. A federal jury would have destroyed them. They settled in 6 months. The settlement was $950,000. It was one of the largest payouts for a single arrest in the city's history. But Evelyn didn't stop there. As part of the settlement, she demanded a consent decree. The department had to implement mandatory constitutional policing training specifically regarding the Fourth Amendment and retail theft investigations. They had to wear body cameras at all times with severe penalties for muting them. Officer Tyler Branning was terminated. His union tried to fight it, but the conduct unbecoming charge was sticky. Being recorded discarding federal credentials as fakes was indefensible. He lost his badge. He lost his pension. He was named on the Brady list, meaning he could never testify in court again because his credibility was shot. He would never work in law enforcement again. Evelyn Vance donated a significant portion of her settlement to a legal defense fund for indigent defendants who had been victims of police misconduct. She returned to work her resolve harder than steel. She kept the shattered phone on her desk as a reminder. A year later, Evelyn was back at TechZone. She needed a new hard drive. She walked to the checkout pad and pushed her cart toward the exit. A new officer was standing there. He was young, maybe 25. He saw her coming. He saw the cart. He smiled and nodded. "Have a good afternoon, ma'am." Evelyn nodded back. "You too, officer." She walked out into the sunlight, a free woman in a world she had made just a little bit fairer. This story isn't just about a bad cop or a settlement. It's about the arrogance of power unchecked by knowledge. It's about the assumption that authority grants permission to bypass the Constitution. Evelyn Vance had the power to fight back because of who she was, but she fought for everyone who isn't a federal agent. She fought for the grandmother who doesn't know case law, for the teenager who gets scared and runs for every citizen who deserves to be treated with dignity. When we let bias dictate policing, we don't just violate rights. We erode the very foundation of the law. Justice shouldn't depend on whether you have a badge in your purse. It should be the default setting for every interaction. What do you think? Was the settlement enough? Does the termination of one officer actually change the system? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you believe in holding the line for civil rights, share this story. We need to keep the lights on. See you in the next one.